might be the best medicine in the world. Let me repeat that. Sharing a story with others who care about you just might be the best medicine in the world. But more times than not, your stories go untold. And that could lead to anxiety and feeling of being out of touch. But if you do share your story with others who care about you, you will have low anxiety and high endorphins. So right now, right here, this moment, I should be feeling loved and not nervous at all. All right. So, Mr. Toastmaster, thank you very much. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. What I learned is I read on the internet this theory, and I'd like to share a little bit more about it with you all. And we all know that everything we've ever read on the internet is true, right? Thank you. Well, tonight, I'm going to be the judge. I'm going to share with you 3 short stories about myself. And at the end of those stories, I'm going to tell you just how I feel. When I was a little girl, I was a little girl once, if you can believe it. Yep, it was a long time ago. But I used to have problems with my ears. And it wasn't like you hear now about the tubes. It wasn't that at all. They were just very overly sensitive. Like if I would bump them on something or maybe run over my ear with hairbrush, my ears would get red and be throbbing. But my mom was always there to care for me and make me feel better. Back in my insurance career, I was lucky enough to work in a building in downtown Milwaukee that had its own racquetball court. Do people play racquetball anymore? Mm-hmm. I know that pickleball is really popular these days, but I digress. Back to my story. I would schedule a racquetball match once a week with a guy by the name of Brian, who just happened to be my boss. And a lot of times, I would let him win. But that's all right. But I always thought I had an advantage over Brian, so let me explain that further. Brian came up to about here on me. So, my advantage is I'm 6 feet tall, and then you add in my freakishly long arms, and then you add on to that a ball racket, and you can see what kind of reach I had in a racquetball court. You know, bam, bam, I could reach just about everything. And Brian couldn't, so, once in a while I let him win. So, in one of my matches, something went terribly wrong. And I'm going to say a few things that might be uncomfortable for people to hear. And if you need to close your ears, feel free to. I will not be offended. All right, one of my matches went wrong. Brian served the ball, and I thought I got all the way up to the ball, and right before I was ready to hit it, my foot kind of slipped, and here you go, if you have to. I warn you. My knee came out of the socket, just a bit. And it was incredibly painful. So, but lucky for me, Brian had a little bit of a medical background, and he quickly got a chair for me and had me sit down. Took a look at my knee, and he gently took his hand and went like that, put it back into place. And again, the pain went from excruciating to manageable. So that day, Brian took care of me and made me feel better. Now finally, over the past 20 years, I've lost 3 great men in my life my father, my brother Danny, and my brother Mark. And if you've ever lost a parent or a sibling, you know the agony that goes along with that. And my husband Rod has been with me that whole time, and he really did help me through every one of those tragedies. So again, Rod took care of me and made me feel better. All right, I've shared my 3 stories. Now I'm gonna ask myself, how do you feel after sharing those stories? Well, I have to say, I feel fantastic. I know that you are a caring and loving audience, and you listen so carefully to my story about my mom, my boss Brian, and my husband Rod, where they all took care of me and made me feel better. In conclusion, when is the last time you shared a story with someone who cares about you? When is the last time you stood up here and gave a speech at our Toastmasters Club? I look forward to hearing your stories so you too can know the healing power of sharing a story. Mr. Toastmaster.